Welcome to the channel. I want to talk about the experiences that I've had with horrible people in workplace, in my case factories. I want to start off with the people that constantly suck up to management and supervisors. And there was this one guy who called Adam. He used to work in department behind me, and every now and again supervisors and management they patrol factory, and I tell you what, Adam were never far behind. They were always there. They were almost like they were joined at hip, constantly sucking up. And people like this do that for the simple reason is it makes their life easier, because the more you suck up to management, the more you can get away with. This was exactly the case with Adam. He'd come in late, he'd go to bog for 40 minutes, he'd be sat in canteen yakking away when he's supposed to be working. You know, he'd be waltzing around factory when he was supposed to be working. They'd be up in office yakking away when he was supposed to be working. But he got away with this because he were pally-pally with management and supervisors. And I want to touch on the next part, which is snitches in the workplace. And I'm going to talk about Adam again, because he was exactly that. He was a snitch. He used to act as kind of a lookout for the company. And what he'd do, he'd waltz around factory all day, looking at what you were doing, trying to catch you out, to see if you were stood talking or doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing. And then he'd go and relay that back if you'd done something wrong to managers and to supervisors and grass you up. Sometimes you didn't even have to do anything wrong to get grassed up. This is the kind of guy we're dealing with here. An absolute horrible person. And I can remember coming back off my dinner break one time. Before we'd start work, we'd all have to gear up. We got protective gear like gloves, goggles, etc, etc. And me and a few work colleagues would have a little bit of a natter before we start work. No more than 20 seconds, if that. Anyway, Adam grassed us up to management, didn't he? Supervisor. So we all ended up getting a bollocking. We all got sent into office one by one. Basically got told, if you stand about talking again, you're going to be in trouble, basically. And I said, look, we weren't even talking for that long. It were no more than 20 seconds. Literally, we put us gloves on, us goggles on, spoke about what jobs we were doing and whatnot, and then cracked on with job. But yeah, this is what these people are like. It's almost like they want to earn the brownie points, isn't it? And get on the good side for company. Because they've only got one thing on their mind, and that's promotion. That's why they get pally-pally and suck up to management and do whatever they can for their gain. Because I know what he wanted. He wanted to be next in line, didn't he, for supervisor or manager's role. I'm not stupid. And these people will do whatever they can, if that means shitting on you, to make them look good, i.e. snitching and all this. It weren't just us that he snitched on. He was doing it all over the factory. And I know it were him, because I had a friend that used to work in his department. And he caught Adam basically snitching on us to supervisor, saying we're all stood about talking when we were supposed to be working. It's like, even though this Adam were a nobody, like, who the hell are you? Make it make sense. But this goes on everywhere. It's not just in factories, it's in offices, it's in most workplaces. But yeah, that guy were a complete and utter scumbag. But he'd get away with murder, like I said, because he were up manager's arse and up the supervisor's arse. He could stand about all day. He could waltz around factory and get away with murder. He could leave early. He could come in late. He could go to bargaining 40 minutes in toilet. But if any of us did that, yeah, we'd be in office for bollocking. Yeah. He was just, we used to call him Golden Bollocks. Or Golden Boy, because that's what he couldn't do out wrong, do you know what I mean? Anyway, the next one. I've wrote them down so I can remember. Brain's like a sieve. Anyway. Right. Bullies and narcissists. Ooh, here we go. I've spoke about this on my channel before. His name's John, yeah? So if you're a new viewer, you won't know, but if you watch my channel regular, you'll already know about this. But there's no way in hell that I can miss this scumbag off this list, because I'm going to expose this guy for everything, because he made my life an absolute living hell. Anyway, I used to work at this car place. We used to make car parts, end caps, cans we used to call them for exhausts. I used to work on a press machine, and there was a supervisor in our department. His name was John. Proper little bully boy, you know what I mean? We got on for the first few weeks, but after that he'd start having a go at me for nothing. It's like, once we've done our product on our machine, all the bits of metal dropped to the floor, but some of them get stuck under the machine and you can't get them. But I'd do my best to tidy up. I'd sweep under and get everything I could. But even if it were just a little smidgen of metal, a little speck, he'd find it and he'd bollock me for it. I left it at that. I didn't think note of it. Do you know what I mean? I thought next time I'll just try and do better. But that floor could be squeaky clean, yeah, and he'd still bollock you. And we had a press setter come in, and John were training this press setter up. Well, to a degree. But John never told him how to do everything properly, because John liked to see people fail, yeah? Because he liked to be in control. He liked to be the one that knows everything, because then he's got the company by the bollocks, if you get where I'm coming from. But anyway, this one lad, he was a press setter. Proper sound lad, you know. Didn't have a bad thing to say about anybody. Just got on with his job. And one time, he didn't tighten the machine up or something. And John had a proper go at him, like. It's like, you need to tighten that machine up. What you doing? That could cause somebody an injury. Yeah, it's right, innit? It could. But there's ways and means about speaking to people, you know. Instead of having a go at him, you know, speak to him properly. I left it at that, but that kept happening over and over again, to the point where I'd had enough. And I said to John, look mate, the way you're speaking to him, it's not very nice. Speak to him properly. And he's basically told me to F off and all this. And ever since then, he didn't like me. But I'm going to stand up to people like that. I don't like to see people get shouted at for stupid little things, when, you know, you can speak to somebody properly and resolve it correctly. But Johnny sometimes he were alright, and then other days he were a nasty bugger. It's like with me, on one machine, he said, right, you're on that machine there, James. I was like, sign John, no problem. 10 minutes later, he says, what the hell are you doing on that machine? I told you to go on that one. I'm like, hold on a minute, John, you told me to go on this. Now you're telling me to go on that? What's cracking off here like? I couldn't get my head round it. It's like he were intentionally trying to push my buttons because I pulled him up on what happened before with him shouting at everybody. And it was just downhill from there, like. He'd set the machines up, he wouldn't set the machines up correctly, so I'd end up going on a machine and it'd break, and then he'd blame me for it. And like with tidying up as well. because he told us, he says, there's no way you can ever get every speck of metal up off that floor, so just do your best. But so I'd follow on from what he said, but yet he'd still have a go at me. And I'm like, clearly, you're just trying to push me buttons and wind me up. Basically, guys, he didn't want me there. He just didn't like me at all. But I stood up to him. I weren't going to take no shit. And we used to... This health and safety guy came in. And he basically said that we need to wear high visible vests in stores when we went in, because there were fork trucks whipping around left, right and centre. So I was like, "Son, no problem. It's not hard to put an high visible vest on, is it?" But John, like, "Oh, I'm not wearing a vest. I'm not doing that and all this. There's no point." I'm like, "John, mate, it's not difficult. What's your problem?" Anyway, I went up to office, I did, got some high-vis vests, put them in our department to save us walking up there every time we needed to go down to stores. You know, for easy access kind of thing. John went mental at me. "Why did you go against what I said? You know, you don't respect me." I says, "John, I've done nothing but respect you, but you don't respect anybody else. All you do is shout at people. And, you know, basically you're a bully boy. You're a fucking narcissistic psychopath." And it just made my life a living hell, to the point where I had to just leave. There's many more stories, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep it brief like that. Because I know a lot of you already know about the story with John, but I couldn't miss talking about him in this video, you know. I've got to expose people like this for what they are, scumbags. Anyway, next on the list, the slackers. We've all worked with slackers, haven't we? I've worked with many. But one experience that springs to my mind, I was working at a place called Griffith Laboratories. I used to work on a big industrial mixer. It ran a mez, like a big metal platform, you know, with stairs you had to walk up, and they're a big mixer. We used to make crisp seasonings for Golden Wonder, McCoy's, batters for McDonald's, seasonings for KFC. We had to sign this little thing saying we weren't going to fucking disclose the secret recipe. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed the job, I really did. They used to put all the products up on a big pallet, used to check them all off, make sure all right ingredients were there. Used to start off by chucking your salt in, then your oil, mix it up, followed by your flour and all the rest of the ingredients. Excuse me, guys. Anyway, I used to work with this guy called Augie. Proper lazy bugger he were. And what he'd do, would start off by chucking oil in, salt, followed by oil, would mix it up, and then what he'd do, he'd throw a couple of bags of flour in, and then he'd disappear. He'd make an excuse up like saying, "Oh, I've just got to go to the bog light, I'm dying for the toilet." Alright, sound, Augie. No worries, mate. So I'd carry on chucking everything in mixer. Yeah. Half an hour later, at this moment, I chucked all ingredients in. And it weren't no easy task. Sometimes you had about 40 bags of flour and umpteen amounts of bloody everything else you had to bang in mixer. So it was quite hard work. Anyway, half an hour later, I'd catch him downstairs, sat down doing paperwork. I'm like, okay. I left it at that for the first time, but he kept doing it all the time. And the next time, he were like, same again, like oil, salt, oil. Then he'd throw a few more bits of ingredients in, then he'd disappear. And he'd go, "Oh, I've just got to go and see supervisor about something. You know, I'll be back in a moment." I'm like, all right then, here we go again. Yeah, half an hour later, I'd catch him downstairs doing paperwork again. Anyway, it happened again, like, chuck salt in on next one, oil, and then a few more bags of flour, and then he disappeared. I can't remember what excuse he made up this time. But I thought, I'm not having it this time, mate. I'm going to wait. I'm not chucking any more ingredients in. I'm going to wait until you come back. Yeah, because I'm not having it. I'm going to be treated like a mug like that. Anyway, I shouts down to him. This was like 25 minutes later. Augie, what are you doing, mate? You coming to finish job or what? Like, we've got this mix to lob in. It's like, he looked at me funny like. He started walking up to me, shaking his head. I says, what are you shaking your head at like? Mumbled something under his breath. I says, look, Augie, mate, I'm not being funny, but I'm not going to have you treat me like a mug like this. You disappear every time, yeah, on every job we do. And you expect me to throw everything in and carry you. I says, I'm not having it. And that were that, guys. A complete and utter slacker. Next one, right. The Jekyll and Hyde characters. I used to work at a steel place. We used to pack big bits of steel. I used to work on a saw. I used to work with this one geezer. One day you're all right. Next day he'd be a complete and utter idiot, you know. He'd be a different person. He'd be shouting at you for no reason. And he'd just go off his nut. Moaning about everything and everybody. And I think I lasted a week working with this guy. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. And I says to him, I says, look mate, are you alright? Is there something going on at home or whatever? I says, look, you can talk to me. I says, look, we spend 8 to 10 hours a day working together. You know, at least open up. He says, no, nothing's wrong mate, everything's alright. I says, it's clearly not alright, is it? Something's going on. Because one day you're sound and then next day you're effing and blinding and breathing down my neck for no reason. You're a totally different person. But never would open up to me. Like complete and utter Jekyll and Hyde character. I'm like, it's probably because deep down you're an idiot, yeah? And you get off on making people's lives misery. Because your life's so crap. You think it's great and okay, you know, to make my life a misery. It's just bonkers, isn't it? It's like, if you're not happy with your job, go and get something else. Anyway, I says to supervisor, like, I can't deal with working with him anymore. He's up and down, left, right and centre all the time. So I ended up working in packing department and that was that. Anyway, next one. I hope some of you lot can relate to this, and if you can, drop it in comments, like. The next, right, you know them type of people that just want to go to work, yeah? Just keep themselves to themselves, do the job and go home, yeah? These types of people that don't want no drama, they just want to do the job and go home, basically. And I'm speaking about myself here because that's exactly how I were. I weren't ignorant, you know. If somebody spoke to me, I'd speak back. And I'd have a good conversation with you. And I'd be polite and nice, but a lot of the places I worked at, they were just drama, you know. And I just never wanted to get caught up in drama. Because at the end of the day, working's hard enough as it is without getting caught up in that. And there are a lot of people that were doing that in this place. You know, it's like all they did were moan and complain about everything. And like snide and snitch and bloody talk about people behind the back. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't be doing with it. That's why on break times, like, half of them used to sit in canteen. And they'd moan and moan and moan to the point where I can't be dealing with this now. I'm going to go and sit in car on break. Because it was just dragging me down, all negativity. But like, you get seen as the outcast. You get seen as weird because, and they think you're unsociable. Because you just want to go to work, do your job and go home. You don't want to be caught up in all this workplace fucking drama and nonsense, yeah? But they look at you like you're weird, but we're not weird, mate. Like I've just said, we just can't be dealing with it, yeah? All that negativity zaps and drains the life out of you, yeah? If you let it. But yeah, That's what I was like. I just wanted to go to work, do my job, come home. That were it. Next. I'm trying to rush, guys. Right, I've got 8 minutes left. For some reason, my phone's only letting me record for 28 minutes. Right. What have I missed out here? The people that moan and are negative all the time. Right. I used to work with an old bloke in his late 50s. Could have been 60s, anyway. And this guy, all he did was moan every day. Every freaking day of the week, yeah. There weren't a day that he didn't moan. All he barked on about was retirement, yeah. And I get it, yeah. People, you know, when you've worked your whole life, you look forward to retirement. But like, yeah, I don't need to hear about it every day. And he never had one positive thing to say, ever. It were always F you, F this, you know, slagging everybody off, slagging management off all the time. And I never heard one positive story. I even said to him, I says, have you got a positive to say, mate? I says, well, how come you're so negative all the time? Oh, I've just had enough of this place, I've had enough of that. But it's like, they're energy vampires. They zap the life out of you, don't they? I started becoming negative because, you know, when you're around somebody like that, I had to work with him for 8 hours. It rubs off on you to the point where I'm like, Jammer, this is not you. And I'm like, I've got to snap out of this now. And he expected, because this geezer, he worked there most of his life at this company, over 20 odd years. What, a big portion of his life. And he knew all ropes, he knew all tricks and trades with certain jobs. And I didn't. And I'm one of them guys that it takes me a while before I actually click with certain jobs. I have to do them over and over again before I get them, yeah? But it's almost like he expected me to get it straight away. But I couldn't do it. It takes me a long time for a job to click. It's like, he weren't even bothered, like, you're like, oh, if you can't do the job, F off and all this. It was just a complete negative, horrible old man. You know what I mean? But they're everywhere, aren't they? Everywhere you go. Not just in factories. Right, have I missed hotels out? Terrible managers, right. I'll finish off with terrible managers. I've got 6 minutes, so I've got to be fast. If I have to cut it abruptly, you know, it's because I'm right at the end of my 28 minutes. But horrible managers. I think we've all worked for a horrible manager at some point in our life, haven't we? But this one horrible manager that I work for, yeah, says it all, you know. He's a horrible, horrible guy. Very snidey, very vindictive, very narcissistic. This guy thought he knew it all, but knew F all. He thought he knew about the jobs and the processes of how we made the product, but he didn't have a clue. But he claimed to, like. And he'd be stood over your shoulder while we were doing his jobs, and he were like, could you not do that to make it faster? Or could you not do that? I'm like, mate, I know my job, yeah? You don't know my job. All you do is sit in office on your arse and waltz about factory. That's all you do. So basically, don't tell me how to do my job. And he was just trying to speed the process up to get us to do more work. But this guy didn't have a clue. And he favoured a lot of people as well. There were a few people that had been there quite a while, yeah, that he thought were the bee's knees, he thought were the best. Even though these guys were bone idle, yeah, and all they did was walk around and chit chat all day. But for some reason, he were the best thing since life's bread. But us lot that grafted and worked hard and did our best to hit the targets, we get treated like shit. It's like the more you do, the less you get thought of. And the less you do, the more you get thought of. Make it make sense. We used to call him Golden Boy, Golden Bollocks, yeah? You know, this manager that favoured this guy, we used to call him Golden Boy. It's similar to the Adam types, yeah? That sucky up to managers just to make their life easier so they can get away with murder, innit? You know, used to leave early, come in late. Like I said, sit in bog, he used to sit in canteen, he used to walk around the factory thinking he was dog's bollocks when he were a nobody. And he did this all because he knew he had protection at management and supervisors, and he knew he could get away with it. But you get them everywhere, don't you? Especially factory jobs. I tell you what, guys, I'll never ever in my life do another factory job, yeah? I can't stand the places. Most of the time, it's not the job, it's the people. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Massive thank you to everybody that likes, shares, subscribes, comments, all that good shit. I love you all. Hopefully, I'll see you on the next one. Respect.